Good evening, everybody. It's good to be back, streaming again, talking about the one and only Nottingham Forest. Today, we're going to be discussing something in specific about Nottingham Forest, and that is tomorrow's game at the King Power Stadium against Leicester City. So, big game. I'm not going to say that it's a rivalry, just for the purpose of Dawes' sanity, because I know you'd be going crazy if I called it a rivalry, and I know some other Forest fans would. But I'm not going to get into the debate of whether it's a rivalry or not right now. Now is not the time. But instead, we're going to be talking about what tomorrow's game is, what it means to the club, and also what it means to the two managers that are managing the two teams on the show tomorrow. Obviously, Brendan Rodgers, understandably, he's in a lot of trouble. He's not won a game yet with Leicester. I mean, Steve Cooper's won a game with Forest, but he's yet to win a game with them. And he's got some very good players in that squad that I think actually Leicester do have the potential to go and do very, very well. But the problem is, obviously, there's something deeper in the club that's causing a lot of issues. And maybe that is Brendan Rodgers, or maybe it's not. Maybe there's other things going on around the club that perhaps we don't get to see, or should I say Leicester fans don't get to see. I don't really check up on their news very often. But thank you to everybody joining. There's 17 of you at the moment. It's been quite quiet for a while. I think we're still picking up from after the holiday. So usually we'd have a lot more people in, but I don't know where everybody is. So please do share if you can. I know some people might be coming home from work, so that's completely fair enough. I hope you're doing okay. Kel, Forrest Ann, Eve, James, good to have you in the stream. And don't forget, we're going to be having a guest coming on very soon. They were meant to be here at 7, but I've not actually seen them yet. So that's just the beauty of it, but I'm sure it'll be here very soon. And it's no other than Ralph as well, by the way. I just want to let you know, it'll be Ralph that I'm doing this podcast with this evening. So it's a little bit earlier than we'd usually do it. We'd usually do it at 8. That's Dawes at 9. But today we're doing it at 7. It's a different time, so I'm completely understand if people can't make it just due to the time. But unfortunately, I've got school in the morning and I've got radio as well. Well, fortunately, I've got radio, but school, the unfortunate side of it. So Ralph will be coming on very soon. But yeah, it's a busy morning tomorrow. So I've had to come on a little bit earlier for you all. So 7 o'clock today, as I put it out on Twitter anyway. So you can all join and have a little chat with me about Forest. And don't forget, if you do want to join, you can just comment down in the comments and I'll be happy to answer any questions and also send you an invite link as well to come and have a chat with me. Because don't forget, this is a Forest community channel. Everybody's got their own platform to come and speak. And obviously with a big game against Leicester tomorrow, I think it's a pretty important one. So how are we all feeling? First of all, obviously Leicester, a team that is beatable. I think probably the last 2 games have been as well. Bournemouth and Fulham. In fact, they're 2 games really where I expected to at least see 3 points in one of them. I'd said a minimum 4 points from those 2 games, and we got none. So it's been a pretty bad couple of games, we could say. And I think it'd be fair to say that as well. That being said, Forest do have the chance to turn this around. They have a massive chance to turn this around. But before I go to that, and I get Ralph into the stream, I just want to mention Forest have posted a loan watch for this week, which is Horvath getting a clean sheet, another clean sheet for him. So he's been doing excellent. He's got his 4th clean sheet of the season so far, so that's brilliant. Riley Harbottle got his 3rd goal in this season's campaign for Mansfield Town FC. So that's another brilliant accolade for him to have. He's been brilliant at Mansfield. I've not seen someone score so many goals. He's been brilliant. And Panzo helped Coventry win against Middlesbrough, a game that, well, obviously considering they're bottom of the table, or they were at the time, was much needed. So congratulations to those 3, Riley Harbottle, Jonathan Panzo and Ethan Horvath. They've been fantastic on loan. So brilliant. We've got some very good players out there, young players and also backups as well. But without further ado, we'll get Ralph onto the stream now. Ralph, good to have you back. It's been a little while. I hope you're doing well. Now, big game tomorrow. Obviously Leicester. I don't know if you want to call it a rivalry or not. I really don't want to be too controversial here because I know how people are. But obviously you've been on holiday for a little bit, relaxing. But now you're back in the world of stressing about Forest. So you're back in this world now. It's enjoyable while it lasts, isn't it? Let's be honest. But yeah, I can't say I'm going to be taking too many more holidays. I wish I could afford it. But seriously, Forest tomorrow, big game. They have to turn it around soon, otherwise they can find themselves in a real bit of trouble. And we don't want an early relegation, although I don't want to speak too far forward because we're in October. I know it's the first month of the Prem or the first month and a half. But still, there's 30 games left to go. But tomorrow's game really could be a decider of how those next 29 games after it go. You know what I mean? In terms of the mentality of the team, etc. How are you feeling ahead of that, and kind of anything that you think that Cooper might change to try and win that game?
Yeah, great to be back on again, Jane. Good to see you, my friend. There's a lot there. It is one of those games where we can feel the pressure already building up, and there's people already calling for Cooper out, which to me is just absolute nonsense. But there's that pressure there, and you're seeing on other podcasts where people are starting to get on the back of the team. I think that there's going to be. I think we're going to be all right at the second half of the season once all the players have gelled. All those people that were saying we could do a Fulham were quite entitled to that view, and in some cases are quite right. There's a lot of gelling to do. I'm a kind of glass half full kind of guy, so I've got a feeling that that international break will have helped some of the players that stayed behind, like the O'Briens and the players that didn't go on international duty. But we've still got, and people like Lingard as well, which, we've still yet to see him really come to his own. And that's what I really want to see in tomorrow's match against Leicester. I want to see those players that have stayed behind doing really well. Whether they get played or not, we don't know. But Lingard's still got so much more to give. I think Taiwo's got more to give, although I've been quite happy with his performance. But we've got that turning point tomorrow, I think, where if we don't do well, just the calls are going to be even higher for, Cooper to lose his job, for, all that kind of backseat managing where people are saying, we should be changing the formation, we should be changing the team. I don't listen to any of those voices. Steve Cooper is a far better tactician and a far better manager than anyone on Twitter. So I'll go with whatever he says is right, because he also knows which players are, are stressed out, which players are, carrying a little bit of a knock, which players are, having disputes with their wives or whatever it might be. That means they're not in the right frame of mind. We don't know any of that. So, when we're just looking at that in terms of, football manager, these players are available, play them, and they'll be the best players there. But tomorrow is a difficult game. It should be an easy enough game that we've got. They've got quite a poor defence at the moment, and they're really poor at set pieces. We should be able to score against them, but we keep switching off at the back and in midfield as well, allowing people to take shots from further out, which you can't do in this division. It's not like the Championship, but I think we've got enough that we should be able to see off Leicester. But then I thought exactly the same about Fulham. I thought exactly the same about Bournemouth, and what I don't want is for the rot to set in more amongst the fans, that they start turning against the players and Steve Cooper. Sorry, that was a long-winded answer, but
but seriously, that's true though. That's true, because I mean, obviously, tomorrow, it's one of those games where it could kind of rejuvenate the fan base, get them a bit more going, a bit more motivated, and try to make something good out of a bad month or two. But that being said, we have to look at this game as how we do every other game. We've got to go out there and get the 3 points. Obviously, there's everybody going on about the rivalry and all this. We've just got to get the 3 points. I'm not bothered about anything else other than just getting on the pitch, getting the 3 points and going home. Do you know what I mean? And that's all that we want. At the same time, of course, they want that. Obviously they've not got a win yet, so they've got a lot to prove. And for the players they've got there, they should be at least getting a win. You've got Maddison, you've got Tielemans, you've got Vardy, who I know has had a couple of injury problems, I'm pretty sure. So, there's been a couple of problems there, and obviously they've had their own financial issues as well, which I don't know if they're resolved yet. But, there's things going on behind the scenes at the club that are probably creating a bit of disharmony, to be honest. So you've got to give
Rodgers
that...
himself as well.
Brendan, of course. I mean, look, let's be honest. I mean, Brendan Rodgers isn't a bad manager. And the Leicester fans that say he is, of course, they're going to say it because they're not performing well. I mean, you know, I'm sure we'd do the same. If we hadn't got a win, we'd be going for Cooper and whatever, or people would, should I say. I don't think I would. But the thing is,
he's a man under pressure, isn't he? And
yeah, exactly. He's a man under pressure at a club that, you know, has been known for obviously getting that Premier League win. I think it was 2015, it might have been.
God, how long ago was it?
No, exactly. It's 7 years ago, you know, how time's gone so quick, you know, but all the FA Cups they've won, you know, the little trophies here and there and doing okay in Europe as well, you know, those are things that Leicester is now known for.
Yeah.
But there's a possibility they could be a championship side again, which is quite a scary thing for obviously them. But then for us, we've just been in the championship. We won all of our stuff years ago.
Yeah.
We've got less to lose than they have. But at the same time, that 3 points, we really need it, because as much as we've got less to lose in regard to the reputation and, you know, the size of the club going down, I just think obviously 23 years out, for us, it's going to be gutting. So, but obviously it's too soon to talk about relegation or even anything near it at the moment. But a game like that against Leicester is a game where you want to be saying, right, we've come back from the break. We've got, you know, all the lads gelling up. And of course, we brought a lot of lads in. There's a couple of injury concerns, so it's good that we have brought people in, because Gibbs White might not be available, which I'm pretty sure he isn't. And then there's a couple of other lads that have taken knocks as well. So it's a really difficult one, to be honest. And obviously we've got the tough game of Leicester, and Leicester aren't going to be easy, as some people think they are going to be. These guys aren't just going to roll over. They're going to give us a challenge. But can we overcome it? Obviously, Niakate and Mangala, I would say, will be coming back. I would hope so. Let's hope so. I mean, Mangala's almost a guaranteed. Niakate, likely, right? How much impact do you think those two players are going to have? Because, I mean, I've mentioned before, you know, in the 3 or 4 games we had them both, we picked up 4 points.
Yeah.
And since then, they've been injured. We've picked up none. So, big impact on the game, or just a coincidence?
I'd try and put a little bit of caution on that. They are good players when they're fit, but they're coming back from injury, so they're going to be a little bit reticent to start with as well. But also, they don't have that fitness backup that they did when they were playing, you know, against Everton and West Ham. I think they played against Everton. So I think, you know, there might be 80-90% there, which might be enough. Might still make them better than, you know, having Yates in there or having Freuler in there currently. So I wouldn't say just because they're going to be in there, they're going to be as good as they were when they were playing and we were picking up points. That said, we've got other players that have been training while the international break's been on. You know, how long's it been now? 2 weeks since we've had a competitive match? That's quality time. You know, that's on the training pitch, and that's what Steve Cooper was lamenting a couple of months ago when the games were coming in thick and fast, that it was, you're going from a match, you were seeing the errors and you didn't have the time on the training pitch to actually address those. This is where we see how good Steve Cooper is, hopefully, fingers crossed, that he's had 2 weeks or however long it's been with the players to get them conforming to his vision and his style. And whether it's Mangala and Niakate that come back into there, or whether he decides it should be other players in there, we'll see then, you know, just how useful this international break's been in getting that team gelling, getting them to understand one another. Because I think there's actually bigger issues there, in that we don't have that Jed Spence, Brennan Johnson dynamic with that's been formed yet with Williams, and we don't have it on the left-hand side either, where you've got 2 players that are just terrified down the flanks. And I thought that was certainly, looking at the players that they've bought this season, and the amount of players, it's really showing itself now how much that's needed, just with the depth. You know, just a few injuries coming in, and all of a sudden that depth's absolutely critical, of having that quality in depth. But not having those flanks that are both tearing forward and linking up with one another to terrify the defences and get behind the defences is really showing now. And it means that we're playing reactively in a way, and it means we're always anticipating what the other teams are doing, rather than setting our own standard, charging forward like we did last season against capable Premier League defences in the FA Cup run. And I think that that's the real issue. I think that if we were able to stamp our own authority on the game, we wouldn't have those issues, and we wouldn't be seeing Ryan Yates being picked up on Match of the Day every week saying, this is a defensive error, left too much space, and things like that, because we'd be having the momentum rather than soaking up the pressure.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned obviously the 2 weeks that they've had off as well. Obviously, a couple of the players been playing internationally. Obviously, Nico, well, more than a couple. Nico, Hennessy, Hendo, Brennan, of course. And a couple of the other lads as well.
Yeah,
So,
Lottie.
Loddy, Awani, Dennis. I think
it's a lot. It's great to hear, actually, isn't it?
Is a hell of
All
a
these
lot.
Forest players now playing internationally.
And this is what it. And this is it. And this is absolutely what it is. It's brilliant. Obviously, they've had a couple of days to go and train together properly. But tomorrow's the night that matters, and no matter what we do on the pitch, the only stat that actually matters in the grand scheme of things is that end result. So we've got to make sure we win, get the 3 points. And of course, as James pointed out in the chat, I don't know if you can see this, but he's saying that Leicester will give it all, them needing a win. We'll sit back and attack when Leicester, mess up. But I think it'll be more than that. I think we're going to go for it regardless of whether Leicester mess up or anything, because when it came to Bournemouth and when it came to Fulham, I thought that we were on the attack and we were doing okay. Bournemouth a little bit less so, but Fulham more so, I would say. I thought first half we were good. Starting off that second half, I thought Brennan's going to get us another one here and then, go from there. Yeah. But that didn't happen. Lewis O'Brien came on and could have saved us the game, but just unlucky with the one he's had, So I would say the positives you can take from it, I'm trying not to sound like Chris Hughton now, but is that we have scored. We have scored from, the games that we've been playing. We've scored 4 goals in 2 games.
That's not easy for a newly promoted team.
4 goals in 2 games against, okay, it's Fulham and Bournemouth, but Fulham aren't far off the top 6 and Bournemouth are getting themselves into good form. So, they drew against Brentford. It's a good result for them. They're doing really well. And you have to give them credit for that. And as much as I don't really like Bournemouth, because I just think they're just super jammy. And I just think the fan base is just like, it's all
fans. What's that about?
Do you know what I mean? Like, they can't even sell out that small stadium. I don't even want to get into like a little, as I've said in the thumbnail, a grudge match, if you like. I don't want to do that because I just want to say I think Bournemouth have done great considering, and obviously Fulham have also done the same. But that's taken years of practice. Obviously Bournemouth were in it for a while, came down and went back up, and Fulham up and down for a few years, and now it looks like they've cemented themselves back as a Premier League squad. So they've gone through a project. They've gone through a complete reform of the club, big changes over the coming years, and you can tell things are going okay for them now. So we do have to trust in the process, but equally things do have to improve. And one of the things that I think would be nice to see is we've mentioned it loads on the last stream as well, but looking at that formation, if you are going to put in the formation that I expect him to do, which would be like a 5-2-1. What is it? What does he usually go for? Like a
3-2, 3-4-3 kind of, with one sitting deep, or actually he alternates, doesn't he, between 2 strikers and 1 striker, depending on whether he's trying to sneak Morgan Gibbs-White in because he never likes leaving him out.
No, you can't leave him out. It looks like a 3-4-1-2, isn't it? Kind of thing, like
with 2,
kind of. That kind of that. Yeah, that's what I'm going to go for anyway. But it's an interesting formation. It's different, but I would say 4 at the back would be nice. I mean, whether you go for a 4-3-3, you go for a 4-2, well, 4-3-2-1 or 4-2-3-1, should I say? I wouldn't say a 4-1-4-1. I think that'd be a bit weird, to be honest. But it could work if you wanted to have the holding and then the 2 attacking. It's just whichever way you want to do it. But equally, we need to use Johnson on the wing. We need to have a Awani playing as a number 9, as he should. And we need someone on the left wing. Now, obviously, if you wanted to play Jesse as the number 10, and then you could put Morgan Gibbs-White on the left, which I've heard people suggest, that's not my go-to. I put Dennis on the left. He's an experienced Premier League player. He's done good things for a struggling side at Watford. Why can't he do it again? You know what I mean? You've just got to give him the game time. I mean, you're paying 12 million, rising to 20 million. You know, he's worth some money. You know what I mean? And we've paid a lot for him. So why don't we use him? It's about time. It's about time he got a start. And to be honest, if you were going to go for what I would say, if we went a 4-3-3, it'd be left back, probably Loddy, to be honest. I mean, although Toffolo's not an awful shout, I don't think he did anything wrong to get taken out of the squad. But Loddy, for the fact that he's, you know,
we
I
also
think
got
he's
the
still
points with Toffolo there as well.
You got yeah, exactly. And Toffolo was good defensively. I think a little bit better defensively than Loddy's been so far. But maybe it's communication things. I don't know. But Loddy, for me, I'll put him there. Centre backs, I mean, you can have to have, because of McKenna's injury, Niakate, Worrell or Bade or Bolly, one of those. And then right back, Nico Williams, 100%. In the midfield, Mangala, O'Brien, and then Morgan Gibbs-White just in front. And then left wing, Dennis, up front, Taiwo, and right wing, Brennan. That would be what I would go for if you were going to chuck it in a 4-3-3. You know, that would, for me, make more sense. Obviously, it's a little bit more in-depth than just going out, let's say, play a 4-3-3 and then just doing it. Of course, how used to the system are they? They've done it a couple of times, but not really that much. Not with much success either. They've not really, I can imagine they've not really done much training as a squad with that. You know, I'm sure as individuals they've played in 4-3-3s with Wales or, you know, for Dennis in different teams. But whether they've done it in a Forest team is very different. And obviously every player has to be able to adapt to that formation well. But having creativity in the midfield is something that I think is really important, obviously, as most people would. But it's something I thought we lacked a little bit in the Fulham game, because I thought that it's almost like we held back a little bit with the amount of creativity we had in that midfield. I just don't think that Freuler and Yates is that inspiring in terms of creativity to start with. Of course, Mangala wasn't there, but for me, Freuler and Lewis O'Brien would have made far more sense to have, given the fact that Freuler, obviously being an experienced midfielder at international, he's got a great delivery. You know, he's got a great vision, and he can have a shot and score it. Lewis O'Brien, he's got pace, he can win you set pieces, and he himself, great skill, great vision as well, and he can get you a goal. So, you know, Morgan Gibbs-White just in front, that would work for me. And also another thing I've noticed about Lewis O'Brien is he always tracks back and gets the ball off the player he's lost it to if he does lose it. Almost kind of reminiscent of Zinkernagel in some form, in the fact that he'll go back and try and win it back again. So I like that idea of a midfield. I don't know how you feel about that. But if you were going to go for a 4-3-3, that's what I'd go for. What would you go for?
4-3-3, right. I'm just writing some notes down there on what my, under his current system, would be. So I'm going to switch this around to match your 4-3-3. So I would go with Lodi, Niakate, Bolly, and Aurier at the back. If he's fit yet, or if he's up to standard yet with his training, because he's kind of doing his pre-season now, isn't he? Then I'd have O'Brien and Mangala in the middle. I would have Dennis and Williams on either wing, with Lingard ahead of them and a 1 year up top. So I would switch Johnson at the moment for Williams, because I want to see how two quality Premier League experienced people, right side players, link up, because I think Aurier will be fantastic defensively as a monster, but it's also well skilled in getting forward, both with, I think, PSG before Tottenham, wasn't it? Or afterwards. But I'd like to see how Aurier and Williams link up, because Williams is the player that wants to keep getting forward and doing the link up. And I don't think Johnson's doing it quite the same at the moment. It's like he's trying to push himself as a striker. So, you know, that link-up play just doesn't seem to be there at the moment. And it might also encourage him to, Johnson, to start playing in that way again, and wanting to link up with Williams in the same way that he did with, how soon we forget the names.
Sorry, it's glitching out a little bit. I don't know if we've still got Ralph, but I would actually, I'm not so sure about Williams. I think we've got you back now.
Did I disappear then?
Yeah, we've got you back. But the bit about Williams I found interesting, because other people have suggested it to me privately.
Oh, okay.
But I've never really been that keen on it, and I'll say why as well, because obviously, we've all got our opinions. But I would say no, because every time that he's ran down that right wing and tried to get a crossing, it's not been that brilliant. To be completely honest, I mean, obviously you've got to give him more time, and I completely understand that. And he's not actually had a ridiculous amount of runs down the wing, so that's fair enough. Maybe it's just an unlucky bit. But for me, I just thought defensively, someone that we need. Of course, you've got Aurier there, but I really wouldn't see Nico as that right wing. I just thought that for me, Jono's got a better shot. He's got a better cross on him than Nico has from what I've seen. And it would make more sense to have Jono there. But so you would, if it came to it, and let's say you were choosing the team, you go Nico right wing.
I'd like to give it a try, because I think if he's freed of some of his defensive responsibilities because he's got a good quality fullback behind him, then that's worthwhile trying, because we know how much Williams wants to get forward, and he's constantly in the game and is driving the game forward. Whereas with all the best will in the world, as good a player as we know Brennan Johnson's going to be, and he is in flashes, he doesn't have that consistency. And that's what we're seeing across all the players that have come up from the Championship. To use, your friend Gary Birtle's phrase about that David Platt said, great players don't get better, they get more consistent. And that's what we need to see from the Yateses, from the Worrells, from the Johnsons, players that aren't making a difference for 10% of the game, but making a difference for the entirety of the game. And I think Williams is one of those players that he never drifts out of the game. He's always giving it his all. And if we push him further forward, I think we'll see more out of him, because I think it's pretty much every game he's had a shot on goal. Well, maybe not on target, but he's been pushing forward and getting into those positions, and he's been unlucky on a couple of occasions not to get goals. So I'd give it a try. We're in fantasy land here, and we aren't Steve Cooper. He's probably got 101 reasons why what I'm saying here is a crazy idea. But I'd like to give that a try, just because I don't like that 80-90% of the game that any player is not making a difference, unless they're that one player up front, like a Wanye, who is just there, or Haaland, let's say, who is just there to get on the end of it, stick it in the net.
Well, I mean, it's an interesting idea. Obviously, I'm still going to stay in my camp of I would keep him at right back. And, obviously there's Forest Ant saying, Ralph, you've just lost all credibility. Be kind, Forest Ant. Christopher says it's a terrible idea. But Brennan gives us goal scoring, though, which is true. Obviously a couple of goals, and that is very true. And I think based on what I've seen, and obviously I only went to watch the one match in Belgium. So that's, I completely understand it's one match. But he did come back to Wales and get man of the match after that. So he's been...
And an assist, yeah.
And an assist again. So for me, I think you've got to look at those two games. 2 assists and 2 brilliant assists. This is what he could offer at Forest if he plays in the right position, which for me, I think is right wing. And as much as I think the idea of having Nico up on that right wing, because he is fairly skillful, he can get past players, we've seen it. I just think that Brennan has been in that position for longer. I think the time for experimenting wouldn't be now. That's the thing that would scare me. I think if we were going to do it, which I wouldn't be against it if we were mid-table by March, April, and there was the chance of us going down was extremely low or impossible, then I would kind of be like, do you know what? Let's test it out. Let's chuck him there. But for now, it's a case of, if you were Steve Cooper, how on earth are you going to do it? Because number one, the backlash you'd get, given the fact that we have to get 3 points soon, otherwise we're in trouble. And, the fact that Brennan could have scored or assisted in the game that Williams has been there. So it's always what ifs and imagine this, or, it's all theoretical, as we say. But for me, I think we've got to at least, even before you think about it, we've got to at least play Brennan in his correct position, which hasn't really happened yet. Now, Mr. Dan has suggested, though, and before I go on to that, I'll go to Leo Cook's question, because this is a really interesting question, and he's got a Wales flag in the back of his profile, so I love that. But hi, thoughts on giving Biancon a run out? This is an interesting one, because I've seen him training and I've looked at him and I've thought he's fairly attacking minded, which we knew already. He's strong, he's always up for a header, and he seems to be quite good on the ball. A player that's kind of been left out a little bit, not really spoken about since he signed. He only signed for around 5 million. So a player we've not spoken about actually much on the stream at all, of any of the streams, except for when he signed. So put it to me.
Yeah.
Would you put Biancon next to whoever it is, Bolly, Bade, Niakate, tomorrow night against Leicester? Would you give him his first start with Forest in the Premier League?
But it's funny, when I was writing down my my preferred team, I'd got Bolly or Bianconi as the one on the right of those back three. It's a tough one because there must be a reason why he's not being played, but then there's also a reason why he was one of the first through the door. So either the data team or Cooper himself really liked the player and wanted him in. But then we've also had so many players come in to fill those positions, and even when we're getting towards the end of the transfer window, rather than starting to play Bianconi when Niakate got injured, we'll then still buying Aurier and Bolly and other players. So I don't know whether Cooper's seen something in him that he's not for the team, or he's not, doing well enough in training. I just don't know what the situation is there. But there's some reason why he's not getting a game. I'm not sure. Is he on the bench during the games?
I think he is most of the time. I'm pretty sure he is most of the time. Yeah.
But there's clearly some reason there why he's not starting when, we're seeing defensive frailties, but he's still not starting. And there's always going to be that issue of he wants to play loved players from Nottingham whenever he can, and the players that helped us get promotion. That's why there's always going to be a push for Worrell, Yates and Johnson to be in the team. First and foremost, there's a visceral reaction from the fans to those, and we want them to do well. But even when, Worrell gets benched, it's not Bianconi that's coming in. Likewise, we're not seeing that with Bade either. He's not coming through. And it might be down to their development, but I would have thought that Bade hasn't had a pre-season with us, but Bianconi has. He's had probably the longest pre-season of anybody here. He was one of the first through the door. So something, I don't want to say sinister. There's nothing sinister about this, but something doesn't quite sit right about why we're having defensive frailties, but he's still not being picked. He clearly is being seen as a backup.
And I thought he seemed okay in pre-season. I mean, I went to the Barnsley game, which was the first of 2 pre-season games I went to, because then we went to Germany after. I didn't get to see much of him then. But during the Barnsley game, it was a pretty rubbish game, so I'm not even going to comment on that. But from what I've seen of him, obviously at Grimsby, he looked okay. I wouldn't say he looked awful. And obviously in training, he does look really good as well. And obviously that is training. I know people are going to say, oh, but Jamie, it's training. It's not, proper or whatever. But on a serious note, the guy, I think he could get a run out at some point. I mean, when is he going to? I mean, if there's problems with Bade, I don't know what they are. If there is, I would imagine it's the language barrier. Right now, he's obviously a French-speaking person. Obviously when they did the interview with the club, he didn't speak any English. So that's, of course, a concern. He's been playing at Rennes for however long. He doesn't know England. And that's fair enough. He's going to take time. So probably on a language course, doing whatever. That's
probably what Bianconi's doing as well, acting as translator a lot at the moment.
Well, he's probably working 2 jobs at the moment. I don't think Forest are paying him extra for it, but I can imagine he's on just about enough to pay for it. But seriously, I mean, this is, obviously you've got a lot of defenders to choose from, but actually it's a case of, well, actually, can we choose from them? Can we pick Bade, or is there issues there? We can't pick McKenna, obviously, because of that injury concern with the knee strain. So it's a tough position to be in. And I know that 24 signings, of course, people saying what they're saying. But Forest have got a plan in place in case something happens. But when it comes to the defence, they bought quite a few players. And we thought from the start of the transfer window, when we bought all the defenders in, right, that's it, done. We're solid. We're brilliant. This is it. Best defence in the league. And it turned out, actually, that's the position that still needed improving the most.
Yeah.
But on, deadline day, and obviously just before, we got the likes of Bolly and Bade, of course. How would you rate those 2 signings? Do you think that Forest, do you think this is Steve Cooper saying, right, we need these 2 players today? Do you think it was a panic buy? How do you feel about those 2? Because I want to use the term panic buy quite loosely, because I don't like using that term. But how did you feel about those two players signing? Was it necessary? Are they the players that we actually need? How'd you feel?
I think it's a mixture of panicking that Niakate got injured and we realised that we needed something more there because Worrell was causing us a few weaknesses, just judgment not being great all the way through the game. And a few handballs and a few penalties given away by by other defenders. So I think what they realised was they wanted to bring in players that are established Premier League players, know that division well, that have maybe got heads on them that even if they're not the fastest, because we can only pick up players at the end of the transfer window, it looked like that were, not the fastest or were just youngsters. That we got Bardet in, who's got a great prospect going forward. I don't know yet whether he's ready for Premier League football as a starter, whether he's one for the future. But if we do go down, we won't even see him. he'll be gone, I think. And then with Bolly, we've got someone who's got a really good head on him, and same with Cecchiate as well. Someone who knows this division inside out and can make those right decisions that they don't need to necessarily be fast. So Cecchiate and Bolly would be good choices for me at the back. I know Chiarte was really good in the midfield against. Who was it where he had a storming match a few matches ago? But I think he's played most of his games in defence for other teams. So I'd be quite happy with those and Niakate if he's back. That would make a good back three for me, just because Niakate's got the pace and he is just so silky smooth. He is a class player, a class above. That was a real good purchase, I think. And Bolly. And Cecchiate just know this division really well.
Well, Bolly's one where I thought he was okay. Bolly, he was decent. The first 30 minutes maybe, but after that, I just thought it was rash decision after rash decision. Him and Cook making too many rash decisions in terms of just sliding into people, just doing really daft things. And for me, that ruined it a little bit because I thought Bolly looks quite forward thinking. He's making some good through passes into the middle, linking up the midfielders, and then they're going to pass the wingers or whoever's playing in the attack or whatever. But in reality, that stopped after the first 30 minutes. So I thought Bolly looks okay. Kouyaté doesn't look bad. I just think that he's not quick enough. That's my big concern because I saw him at Bournemouth and I saw him trying to run after the players, and I was thinking, Jesus, we are getting absolutely bulldozed here if we're only going to have that. Him and Ryan Yates in the midfield, because I think you can have either one or the other. I just think together, I wouldn't go for it. But looking at some of the comments,
I think a lot of that, Jay, is down to the fact that both of them were thrown in very early on, coming to us. I haven't had a pre-season with us, so they don't know the system. So when things start going wrong, they start trying to cover for other players as well. So I think my feeling was that when you see players playing well to start with and then they start fizzling out, it's either because they're not fit, they don't understand the system, or that they're having to cover for other people and making rash decisions. And that's kind of how I felt with that. Could be wrong, and it could well be that the pressure just got too much to them with in this new team. But I think at the back they just have far more composure.
Wow, this is it. These are decisions that Cooper's going to have to make. These are conversations that him, Tate, Reedy, everybody there at the club are going to have those conversations. Not easy conversations to have. They know that the season is on the line. They know that some of them know their jobs are on the line. The players will know for a fact that their jobs are on the line, but their jobs are a little bit more secure than the likes of Cooper and others. So it's going to be a tough one. It's going to be really tough. But looking at some of the comments, Tim says, evening all, hope you're doing well. I'm doing good. I hope you're doing well as well. It is good to be back. We're going to be back a little bit more frequently, hopefully. Depending on my work schedule, I'm having to work quite a lot because obviously I took the 2 weeks off, which wasn't cheap. And I'll talk about my regrets later. But that's I actually really enjoyed it and doing it all again. And I'm hoping to go to Euro 2024 if I can. So at the moment, I've got a saving pots ready. Door's dating site is back in the comments as well. So Door, welcome back. God, we've missed you. We've missed you, haven't we, Door? And your dating sites. Andrew, is that vodka, Jay? Of course it is. I need more than a pint of it, let's be honest. People like and subscribe as well if you haven't already. This video, of course, we're taking time out to make it, and we're literally not doing this for any money. So please, if you can, like and subscribe. It takes a second. Forest Ant, Jay, there's a chance Steve Cooper could bring back Kouyaté. I mean, look, let's be honest. Of course there is. There's no doubt he could be brought back into defence or midfield. He's got experience playing against Leicester, probably more than we have in terms of the Premier League. So maybe he will. It depends, obviously, the midfield situation. We don't know if Mangala is even going to start. I can imagine Niakate and Mangala probably be bench. But Kouyaté and O'Brien is a potential. Get him in, Ant, says Tim Shipman. Hi, Essex Red. I hope you're doing well, my friend. And Beso, not for me. I just think I've seen him trying to go for a header, and I just think, no, I'm okay. With the long balls, it just scares me a little bit. I think he's a bit nervous. That's what I think it is. I think he's big nervous. At the time, big price tag put on his head that he didn't ask for, and it's just caused a lot of unnecessary nerves and anxiety for him, probably. So that'd be my guess. Lose tomorrow, Steve Cooper's gone. No, not true. Not even 2 games. I think he's got till Christmas, to be honest. I think that the owner, there's all this talk about the owner being trigger happy, which of course at Olympiacos he is. You've got to remember the scale of leagues that we're talking about here, though. Olympiacos is a team in the Greek Super League, perhaps the most highly regarded team in Greece, right? The probably most well-known Greek team in Europe and the world. They should be winning the league every year. That's the plan. You know, they should be doing decent in the Champions League. That's what they should be doing. So when a manager doesn't deliver that, like Carlos Cobran, yeah, he wasn't there for very long. He was not there for very long at all. But in the time he was there, he did not deliver. He did not do a lot for Olympiacos. They were shocking. And Marinakis expects results considering all the resources he throws at the club. And he's expecting them to go and smash the league again, as they would usually be expected to do so. And if you can't do that, is already there, then how are you meant to do it at all? So that's the point. This is it. Olympiacos are expected to win more than Forest are. The difference is with Forest and the reason I don't think he's going to be so trigger happy with Forest is because he knows that the Premier League is a process, or he should know that Premier League is a process. He knows that this is a project. We've got up to the Prem, but staying here might not be that easy. And actually, we might go down and have to come back up. But hopefully he realises that Steve Cooper is the man to do that. And if you can imagine this team in the Championship next season, if it did come to that by any, unfortunate reason, and I'm hoping and praying it doesn't, then we are in a position where we can go back up. But as I say, in my opinion, I'll get your opinion on this, Ralph, in a second, but Forest are a very different team to Olympiacos. So all the talk in the media of him being trigger happy and he's going to sack Cooper after the next game, I just think it's ridiculous. And people suggesting that Tuchel would even come to Forest is crazy as well, because he has still got Champions League manager ability and experience there. But looking at this comment, owned by Evangelos Marinakis, he got no patience. But Gordon, you're saying to trust you, but you know more than what we do. So you're saying trust you, but this is a different situation. If they were going to sack him, they could have done it last game. And you're calling us deluded, which, I think that's, yeah. You can call us what you want, Gordon. That's completely fine. But all I'm going to say is, and Ralph, I'll ask for your opinion now. But Marinakis was quite patient with Houghton, wasn't he? As Forest Ant points out. He was really patient with Houghton. 7 games he got to do what he did, and that could have gone worse, and he did sack him at the right time. But you've got to look at this. Marinakis had a fantastic piece of patience with Houghton. Too long was Houghton as the manager of Forest. But luckily, we got Cooper in the end. But you can't tell me that he's been trigger happy at Forest. I really don't think he has. I think you're looking at the Olympiacos team and the managers that they've had go and come in, and you're going, right, let's apply that to Forest. Give me an example of when he's actually been trigger happy at Forest. Can you give me an example? Ralph, can you give me an example?
How many managers have been here under Marinakis? Where do we start off with? I'm forgetting the backlog of managers now.
Ooh, good question. Let me have
But
a quick
Houghton got
look.
a good year, didn't he?
He got a while. He got a
Yeah.
while. So if we have a look
No,
at Forest managers since.
Yeah, that'd be interesting to know how many managers have been under him. But I mean, he's certainly a chairman that will back those managers when he's brought them in. But there's also the structure of the club. The club is structured around Dane Murphy's plans for this club. You know, everything's data analytic, data driven, and getting the right manager in that can coach young players to make them saleable later, and having that good camaraderie in the team. So if you got rid of Cooper, you'd still need to either bring in someone like Cooper, so he fits that Dane Murphy model, or you'd have to get rid of Dane Murphy and all the infrastructure around that as well, and start something new afresh, which Marinakis is not a stupid man. He is not going to think, well, let's scrap everything, start again from scratch, because you're in a much more difficult position. Because as it stands at the moment, you've got this big squad that you've got to gel, and that's going to take time to do. Cooper's probably the best person to actually do that. So he's backed him, and he's got a good manager in here that gets a good camaraderie with the team. And I think we're all pretty certain that given the fullness of time, given enough time, we're going to see a really good team here, that's, you know, may even get to that position if they do gel by kind of Christmas time. We may still be looking at easily avoiding relegation. Not suggesting, you know, we're going to be in top half of the table, but we should certainly avoid relegation still. And I think that if you start tinkering around with it, unless you can just like for like manager bring in someone who's much better, that you know is going to be able to keep you up, and, you know, rolling the dice in the past with Ron Atkinson going back to 1999, you know, there is no guarantees that you're going to have something that's better. And Marinakis will know that, and he's going to have to also buy a whole load more players for that new manager in January as well, and that puts us into financial fair play issues. You're creating so many more issues for yourself when you've actually got a good manager here. So just looking at it practically, it doesn't make sense to get rid of him. Is my view anyway.
No, absolutely. I completely agree. And obviously, he spent a lot of money on him. I don't think he's going to do a Todd Bowley and just get rid of him after spending all that money. I think he knows that, and probably Cooper's probably told him this season isn't going to be a rollover. You know, we're buying good players and we're doing all this, and you've invested great, and this is brilliant. But you've got to also understand that this could take time, and it might not go the way you want it to. And to answer the question about how many managers we've had, I think it was 2017 he took over. I'm pretty sure it was 2017. I'm sure it was 2017. So it might have just been after Philippe Montagnier, who left in January 2017. Gary Brazil took over for a couple of months. I think it was as an interim. Then it was Mark Warburton. Yeah, and then Gary again as caretaker. Then Karanka in 2018 to 19. Simon Ireland as the caretaker. Martin O'Neill from January to June. Lamucci from June 2019 to October 2020. Houghton from October 2020 to September 2021. Stephen Reid, obviously caretaker, and then Cooper till present. So obviously, a couple of managers there. I would say all of them deserve to be sacked at times. And I do want to talk about, because someone's just mentioned this about Lamucci and people slagging him off, etc. You've got to remember, although he was given a lot of players, and there's no denying that, the problem with Lamucci was he was inconsistent. His team was massively inconsistent. You'd go and win a game and it'd be great. You'd all be singing and cheering and everything. But then it'd be crap the next week. Win, loss, win, loss. And it wasn't actually that, you know, it was great, you know, singing the songs, and, you know, there was a couple of good times with him. But, you know, some people have said, but in the past, you know, it's riding his luck a little bit at times. And that's not the manager we need. We need someone who's consistent. And do you know what? I'm just going to say, I thought that Karanka was the one. I thought, this guy's a good manager. This guy's a good manager. You know, I'm not denying he's not a bad manager, but I thought he's the one.
Yeah.
Out of everyone we got, you know, whether it be Warburton, you know, the Warburton, everybody else, Lamucci, everybody that was there, Martin O'Neill, for me, Karanka was the person that I thought was going to go and do it when he first joined. Obviously, it didn't quite go to plan, but Marinakis sacked him at the right time. And that's the point that people are trying to make here. But he never spent 150 in that whole 5 years. But that's a different situation. He didn't have the money.
You wouldn't
to
have
spend.
been able to. You'd have only bought 150 million worth of crap in the championship, because the difference is that you can't buy the quality that you need. And as soon as any player shows themselves to be good in the championship, a Premier League club buys them in January. So you've got to be that kind of lightning in a bottle. You've got to be successful in a single year, or do it over the increments that, say, Fulham and Bournemouth have done by going up and coming back down again. Because if you've got any good players in the championship, they're going to go. So you're only going to have them for one season. So we've actually done it the right way, although it is that fire in a bottle, lightning in a bottle. It's I don't think anyone expected that we would go up in a season. I remember a few games in after Cooper was picked as the manager, and I think it was against Sheffield Wednesday, where I was like, 4 or 5 games in, are we a good team? Because we were awful a couple of games ago, but I think we might actually be a good team. And then, we go on that run where it starts getting towards the end of the season before we were really knackered as a team. And it was kind of like, we are a runaway train. No one can beat us. We are just a fantastic team, despite being mostly the same players as we had under Houghton. And that shows just what a good manager Cooper is. A team that was broken emotionally, to pull them together, add a couple of extra loans in, and take us up. Which we should, if we had some squad depth, we'd have gone up automatically, I'm certain. And this season, what is to be gained by getting rid of him, bringing somebody else in? Because he is a good manager.
There is, for me, nothing to be gained by doing that. Okay, and no matter what people say, they say, let's bring in Sean Dyche. No, okay, I like Sean Dyche. I think he's a good manager, and I really like what he did at Burnley, because they believed in a project. Okay, they believed in a project. Things didn't go to plan in the end. They didn't spend enough money, which people are arguing over spending, over Marinakis investing. But at Burnley, they had the opposite problem. They didn't invest, and they didn't stay in the Premier League for that reason. So we've got to invest now, at least, to be able to invest later. You've got to spend money to make money in this division. And that's what we're having to do. We're having to spend money, go and get good players, and hope that we can stay up. And I think that apologies if I've just cut out there. A couple of Wi-Fi issues here. Apologies for that. But you're going to get a manager that, doesn't have that money to spend. And equally, is January the right time to be trying to overhaul a team? I don't think so. And of course there was an American cheapskate turnover for Burnley and whatever, but there's still that principle there. They did it in the Premier League, and so can we. But changing manager really isn't the right thing to do. And to answer your question, Gordon Mikulev and Forest Amp, by the way, I 100% agree with you in the chat, but I do think Cooper would be, if we were bottom 3 at Christmas, and I don't know how you feel about this, Ralph, I think he would be. From what I know and I've heard, Forest are still super keen on tying down Cooper into that contract. They want him in that contract. They're pushing for it as much as they can, trying to get terms as best as they can. Obviously, there's things stopping it. There's no doubt in that. I don't know what those things are. The imagination can make its own guesses. But Forest want him to sign that contract now. It's a big contract as well. It's going to be 3 or 4 years at least, which is not the usual 2 years that Marinakis gives managers. You're going to have to give him at least 3 or 4 years. So they're not going to sack him after doing that. So let's say we were bottom 3 at Christmas, Ralph. Do you think Cooper would still be here?
Oh, right. Do I think he'd still be here? So do I think Marinakis would fire him rather than would I have him here? That's where I fall right in between the Jamie and the Gordon camps, because I don't know. I think he's got a lot of patience for Cooper for what he's achieved, and he's bought into the project himself. He knows how difficult it is, and he'll also be aware that if we do go down, he's our best chance of getting us back up again. With you might even get players like Gibbs-White to stay and Nico Williams to stay, because otherwise they're going under a new manager because they won't have that rapport of wanting to work with him. So he's certainly our best chance to get us up, and I hope Marinakis appreciates that. I think he does. But would he? It's that nervousness about, I've got a Premier League club now, do I roll the dice again? But we've still got that issue of, how many times have we rolled the dice in the last 23 years? We're not getting any success until Steve Cooper came in. Okay, we've had a couple of flirtations with the playoffs in the past, but we've had nothing like the success. And, just the sheer quality throughout the remainder of the season that we saw last season, where we were filling the City Ground every week or every fortnight, and fans were just in their droves feeling great about Nottingham Forest. I've been watching Forest since 1995, and I've never seen the City Ground as alive and the fans as happy as they were at the back end of last season. Even before it looked like, before we'd cemented our place in the playoffs, it was just such a wonderful feeling to be a Nottingham Forest fan, and we've not had that at any time that I've been a Forest fan, and that's Steve Cooper.
And that's exactly, this is it. And I've not seen my dad, for one, smile at a Forest match, since the Lewis McGugan free kick or the odd lolly goal, because for Forest fans, like, on a serious note, the odd lolly goal, the odd cutting from the left, the right or the left and having a shot, that was probably the only joy we got in 5 or 6 years as Forest fans. And that's, people think we're joking. That's not, there wasn't really those times that we enjoyed. Like, we got the odd win against Swansea or QPR as well. I think it was QPR where for a couple of seasons, we always beat them by 5. Do you know what I mean? You have Barry Mackay, players like that there for a little bit, players that were at the time all right for us. You had a couple of, when we went through that period of getting all the Portuguese guys as well, like Gil Diaz and who else? It was Goncalves, Gil Diaz, and João Carvalho. Obviously, none of them actually here anymore, and a couple of them doing quite well. I think Gil Diaz is doing quite well. Goncalves, and I think he was doing quite well in La Liga, as far as I'm aware. But this is it. This is what we've been through. From my first game, I think it was 2009. It would have been, and I know that. I think that was the season when McGugan scored that free kick. So I'm almost 100% sure we were at that game. But this is for me a point where we have to look and go, right, do you know what? Look, as Forest fans, we've been through a lot of hardship. We shouldn't just, of course, go, oh, we're losing, let's just, forget about it. We're just, let's just forget about it. It doesn't matter. But what I'm saying is that we've got to get behind the boys. We've got to get behind them. We've got to sing the name. We've got to make sure they feel happy playing on that pitch, because a player that's not winning mentally won't win physically either. Yeah. And I just want to actually address a tweet whilst I'm here as well, because Silver Snail 5.0 has said to me on Twitter, saying that I was slating Kouyaté versus Bournemouth. I just want to say I'm not slating Kouyaté versus Bournemouth. I'm simply saying, for me, he wasn't quick enough. Got a goal, wasn't awful. I'm not saying he was awful. And as you said, Ralph, and correctly said, he brings good experience to the team, and he's not a bad addition by any means. That's what I agree with a lot of the things you said, Ralph. But for me, I just think O'Brien, Mangala would make more sense. I think there's the physical element to that there.
Yeah, and I'd actually like that. I would like to see that in midfield.
Yeah. And I'm not saying that Kouyaté was bad, because obviously if he does get drafted in against Leicester, there's worse options there. Do you know what I mean? And we've certainly had a lot worse over the years, and he really isn't awful. For me, it's just a case of, right, look, I want a faster midfield to start the game, and then maybe later in the game you can bring him on. Yeah. But, this is it. This is what it's all about. We've got to get behind the team. And as Steve Cooper's just actually said, Forest have just released an interview with him. He says that the games before haven't dented our spirit. If anything, it's made us more motivated and even more focused. Now, you've looked at the interviews after the international break. He looks rejuvenated. He looks a lot more calm. And he looks quite confident as well going into that Leicester game. So that's really good to see. And it's good to see that the mental aspect of Forest has improved. Because I know that the players would have been on a bit of a downfall and, mentally after those tough few weeks because they were getting a lot of stick off fans and
Yeah.
everything. So it's good to see. But Gamer 316 says, what would be your starting 11, Jay? Well, in the current formation, then let's go current formation. I don't want to talk hypotheticals. We've already discussed the 4-3-3, so let's go for what it would be under Steve Cooper's formation. For me, Hendo in goal. That's a good start, isn't it? It's a great start. If I could pick him, near Karte, in the middle, probably either Bolly or Worrell, and then on the right, Biancon. I'm going to go out and go for it. Right wing back, Nico Williams. Left wing back, Loddy. I would say, what have we got left? So 5. I'm going to go for O'Brien and Mangala if you can. If not, O'Brien and Freuler. Just in front, Morgan Gibbs-White. Well, if he's probably not available, so Lingard. And then up top, Awoniyi and Johnson. That would be what I would go for, in all honesty, because I think that's really... I don't think you've really got much other choice other than that. In my view, I don't know how you feel about that. Now, let's say we are staying in that formation. What would your starting 11 be?
Borde, Niakate, and Bolly is the back three. I think I'm going to get shot down in flames here, but I think that the people that came up with us last season have shown themselves to be either past it for the Premier League in the likes of I can't even remember his name, Steve Cook. Bournemouth sold him for a reason. They don't feel he's good enough for the Premier League. Very good for the Championship, but not good enough for the Premier League, and he's not going to get better. He's only going to get worse as he gets older. Bolly, I think, knows this division really well. I'd like to see him. Barde's a bit of a risk because we don't know how good he is because he's not played yet. But, he's got a good reputation. It'd be interesting to see how he does play. Lodi, and I'll change over from Aurier so I don't get shot down again. And I'll say Williams at the back, right. And ahead of him, Johnson ahead of him for that link up, and hopefully they've got that worked out. But I also like the idea of, and centre midfield, I would go with O'Brien and Mangala. I hope that in the fullness of time that will be Freuler and Mangala, because I think that they are going to be a really good, solid midfield pairing. But they're not quite ready for that yet. Freuler's shown himself to be not up to the system that we're wanting to play yet. Unless it's playing against Yates that he was having to compensate for Yates as well. I don't know. But one thing that I want to see Lingard playing because we've got a lot more to get from him. And it was interesting. There was an Evening Post article on that this week. I don't know if you saw it, that was mentioning about how he has regular chats with Steve Cooper. And, this international break might be the time when he realises he's not going to the World Cup. He doesn't need to be, over pressuring himself. And it's time for him to settle into a game that he's happy playing in that number 10 role and getting forward and really playing to his ability. So I want Lingard in there because I know there's another 50% he can give. He's not played that well, but we know he's got that quality still. He's only 29. It's not like he's starting to really drop off yet. But I kind of want to see Awoniyi and Dennis playing because they were housemates. I didn't even realise that until earlier in the week. There's always been this thing of strikers hunting pairs, and those two really know each other well. They also play for the Nigerian national team, so it's a perfect pairing up front, really. If we play a front two, but then everybody likes Johnson. Everyone wants Johnson to be there, and he's already got a goal and he's got a penalty, and we know he's going to be a fantastic player in the fullness of time. But then Dennis isn't getting a sniff in, but he cost 20 million and he scored 9-10 goals in a terrible Watford team. So, he's got goals in him in this division. We're not giving him the run-outs, and it seems a bit of a shame and a bit of a waste.
No, I agree 100%. And you know what as well? You've got to remember that, that Brennan's still young, He's learning
21?
probably... Yeah, he's 21, 22, whatever. I think he's 21, yeah. So, he's still learning from all the other lads, but equally, he did a lot in the Championship last season. I know it's in the Championship, but 20 goals and however many assists. I mean, it's a fantastic record. Even when I watched
and he's
him
been
throughout
unplayable in some games as well. Absolutely unplayable.
Of course. I look back through that season and I actually think I rated him highly, but I still don't think I rated him highly enough. Do you know what I mean? I think you look at those stats and you go, wow, this is how good he actually was. And I think he's still got it in him, 100%. He's got a couple of goals already, and obviously, he's going to get more as time goes on. I just think he's got to be played in the right position. Yeah. I think he'll get more assists than he will goals this year, I would predict. But he has to be played in the right place. So for me, I'd still keep Jono, but I see your point. Obviously, you've got Dennis and Awani. They've got great chemistry. And obviously, Jono must be tired as well, because he's been playing for forever. Do you know what I mean? He's been all throughout the summer. He's been playing.
And international break.
And now the international break, and he's going to come back and play again, So for me, if he wasn't going to start, that wouldn't be because I don't think he's good enough. I think it'd be to give him a break, because obviously it does take its toll, and you don't want to increase any risks of injury or anything like that. But the final questions I want to ask, because we're going to kind of end the show very soon. I've got school in the morning, so I can't be up very late. Apologies, guys. But there's a lot of talk about Loddy and Williams being wing backs. We're literally just saying it because that's what the squad would be. We're not going to change formations. I know they're left back and right back. I do know. Don't worry, I've understood what you said, and you guys are right 100%. But we're talking about the formation we would play. But let's just... Well, this is what Game 3 on 6 is. I know I get shot down, but I'd like to see all the players of the team that went up not play. They're just not good enough. Well, the last question I actually want to ask you, Ralph, is I had someone say to me, well, why didn't you just buy the players from last season? Do you not think they would have been good enough? I don't think they would. If you had said to me, right, Keenan Davis is your striker, or this guy. No, not for me. Not for Keenan Davis, not for me. He thought he was good in the Championship. I was worrying in the Prem, not because I don't think he could do it, but too injury prone. Then you've got Max Lowe. He wasn't bad. I liked him when he played, and I'll never forget that goal against Millwall. Never forget it. But he's too injury prone again. Zinchenko, good. Track back a lot. Inconsistent. Jed Spence, he was good. Walked down the line. I don't think he'd get that opportunity in the Prem. Hence why I think that it's more important to have a defensive minded wing back, if you like, rather than an attacking minded one, because we know that in the Premier League at this stage, we're not going to get many attacking opportunities down that flank. So for me, those players that I've just mentioned, I wouldn't actually have them back. And I think we've made the right decision by going for new players. I mean, how do you feel about this? Would Forest be stronger if they kept last season's players and made a couple of additions? Or do you think changing it completely was the right thing to do?
Yeah, we're seeing that now. The weak links in the team are pretty much the players that we're keeping faith with from last season. And we have to be dispassionate about it. We want to stay up. That's the most important thing. No disrespect to Worrell and Yates, who are the biggest defenders at the moment, because they are, I'm pretty sure they are going to be Premier League players, but we can't afford to have their mistakes blooding them and getting them ready, because we're losing points all the time. And this is a hard enough division to start with before you start allowing, giving yourself a 5-point handicap or whatever it might be. So and they're the players that Cooper decided to keep. Not the ones that he passed on. You could say that Garner is one that we didn't quite pass on. We probably would have got him if Man United were wanting to sell him. But even then, he's only warming the bench at Everton, I think, at the moment. And Everton aren't exactly a great team. And Jed Spencer's warming the bench if you can get onto the bench. You've got to trust that managers that know the Premier League well know whether these players are good enough or not, and they're not getting into Premier League teams. I think that Keenan Davis has also got the injury risk as well. I think of all the players, he adds something different. It would have been nice to have Keenan Davis, I think, because he will harry defenders and cause them real problems and pull defenders away, which is good for Johnson to get in, and probably a 1 year as it stands at the moment. But you look at the quality that we've brought in. Some of them haven't fired yet, but they are all a step above what we had last season. Zinchenko, I think, is on his third team since he's left us at the moment. He's already moved on from Olympiacos. But I was kind of thinking before I came on the show that I see that the way that Forest are at the moment, and we're only having these discussions because we've lost 4 games on the bounce, which isn't, necessarily a surprise when we're a newly promoted team. But we've got we've got an evolution to go through this year. We've got 3 tranches of players. So we've got the players that are playing now, and the best players we can play at the moment. And some of those include new players, Williams, O'Brien, or Wanyi, that are playing well in this team and are having to be supplemented by other players that haven't got up to speed yet or are struggling to make the step up to the Premier League. But then we've got a second tranche of players that are due to come back to us. These are the ones that, they will improve the team in the short term because of injuries like Niakate and Mangala, and are going to make the team better when they come back in. And then we've got that third tranche of players. That means we're going to be even better in the future because we've got some real world-class players like Lingard and Aurier and Freuler, who are, a much better quality of player than we've got currently. And when that starts clicking, probably in the second half of the season, we're going to look like a really good team then. The question will be, are we going to be able to pick up enough points in that interim period? And are we then still going to pick up lots of points at the back end of the season? And are they going to gel, or are they going to be, expensive failures? But Freuler and Lingard, we're seeing nothing like the quality that we should see from them. But we've still got enough players at the moment that we could easily be sitting on 12 points now. It's only because of key players not having that consistency that they switch off, or they don't press their players, or that they're leaving players free to take shots from outside the box, that you can't do it in this division. And it's just a real shame that, coming back to the original point, that optimism that we had from being on a high of Wembley and seeing that we'd beaten 3 Premier League teams in the cup, we thought, well, this is going to be good. If we can beat Liverpool, albeit a second string Liverpool, we should be able to at least keep our own against the Bournemouths and the Fulhams. And we've brought extra players in that I think are better than what we had last season on loan, but we're still finding it really tough. And for all those people that say, we've bought too many players, it just shows, even when you lose Mangala and Niakate, that we're now struggling as who we fill those voids, because you do need that depth. You need that quality in depth. You couldn't be relying on, some of the players, the Lyle Taylors or the Cafus. I think Cafu's still hanging around because we need him to translate for Lodi, who's been thrown in as a Portuguese speaker. But Lodi, he's another one. He's a Brazilian international player. He's the first. We've had Brazilian players in the past, but not international Brazilians. He is absolute quality. That's why the first match he could play, he went straight in, because he is absolute quality. He's not learned the system yet. He will get better. And there's lots of players like that. And if it does gel by Christmas, we should be a really good team.
Agreed. And I think, we've shown spots of that. We've shown glimpses of a team that could compete in the Prem to a high standard. I think at Spurs, we showed promise to a degree, and definitely at West Ham. Obviously Newcastle you can write off almost, but Everton, unlucky to not get the 3 points. But Everton have been getting themselves up the table, and they've, although they haven't really won many, they've been drawing, and they've been getting points, and that's all we need to do. And it just goes to show that even a point in the Premier League is the most important thing, and 3 points would be absolutely massive, and 3 points will take us out of that bottom 3 100%. So,
and the best chance we've got is tomorrow night against bottom of the table Leicester, who
we've got to do it.
Defense.
We've got to do it. We've got to take exploitation of that. We've got to exploit that. And we've also got to use Awoniyi to the best of our abilities. And I think tomorrow is the day. And I think he could get his 3rd goal in 4 starts if he does start.
Yeah.
But everyone,
instincts are so phenomenal. He has to start.
He won't 100%.
Score every game, but he just knows the positions to get into. That it's better to be lucky than good.
He hasn't scored. He hasn't scored every game, but he's got 2 goals in 3 starts. So it's not actually been far off when he's played. So let's see how it goes. Obviously, I'm looking forward to it. Claire, the very kind Claire in the chat, will be giving me a lift down. So everybody, thank you to Claire. You're a legend, Claire. Looking forward to seeing you tomorrow. And we're going to be sharing the car with a certain other YouTuber that I know. I'm his favourite person. So he says he's looking forward to me chewing his ear off for an hour as we go down to Leicester. Oh, I'm excited. The last time I went there was for a jobs fair. So let's hope it's not as boring as that. Let's hope we can get a result out of it, which I did not at the jobs fair. And let's hope we can get 3 points, which was impossible at the jobs fair. So thank you all for joining. It's been a pleasure. Touch wood that we win this game. It's going to be good. Let's be positive. Get on Twitter. Support the lads. Let's go. I'm excited for this. This is going to be really, really exciting. Big 3 points available, all to play for. Could be Brendan Rodgers' last game. Who knows?
Yeah.
We'll have to wait and see. But Claire says as well, you're having your music on tomorrow? Am I? That sounds brilliant. We were coming back from Manchester at, oh God, whatever time at night. This was brilliant. My music, as Claire will tell you, was fantastic. So if you do want to listen to my music, feel free. I'll send you my playlist. It's brilliant. But everybody, thank you for joining me and Ralph this evening. It's been a pleasure. We're going to be back probably Tuesday night or maybe Thursday night. There's going to be obviously less streams, obviously, just due to the fact that I'm trying to work on podcasts and getting some former players on the podcast and trying to network a little bit so that we can get a couple of good guests on. And believe me, that does take time. It's a long process, but it's going to be worth it. It's going to be worth it in the end. I promise you. I promise you. So I appreciate you all tuning in. It's been a pleasure. Ralph, thank you for joining me and giving your fantastic viewpoints as always. Make sure you all like and subscribe. And more importantly, have a fantastic evening. And I hope to see you guys there tomorrow. Take care, everybody. Have a good evening. Goodbye.